You are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community of Savannah. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanow, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown. Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm really excited to be sitting down with Sharon Norwood today. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you.
So happy to have you. And you live right in my neighborhood, which is exciting. I really like being in your studio space. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood, which has a cool feel.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's really nice. Thanks for thinking of my work and for inviting me and taking time out to come and see me.
Well, I'm very happy to talk to you, and I know that you've been traveling a lot, so I'm glad I caught you when you were local. So I'll go ahead and start by, I'm going to read a line from your artist statement on your website. My research explores issues of identity where I use the line as a way to speak about our relationships to post-colonial structures, systems of power, and their implication to collective suppositions about difference. And recently, I know you've been doing a lot of work in Canada, and either you were here and you were speaking to students there, but you were traveling as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you've been doing recently?
Yeah, so let me think. My practice has been pretty kind of busy. I know last year I did a couple of residencies, I believe. So hard because it's like I had a few exhibitions. I think I had an exhibition in Vancouver earlier on during the year. So that might have been what you might have been connecting with. And then I think I also did a residency, I think sometime, or maybe I might have done a few. I'll have to look at my, I feel like I have to look at my resume to really think about what I've done.
Yeah, you've been bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, I've got keeping track of so many moving parts.
And you did a teaching where you were here and you were
sometimes
Zoom teaching.
Oh, that's right. So sometimes I'll do lectures, I'll present. I think I did an in-person one in Canada at the Story Art Gallery where I did an in-person workshop, and then I think I also did Emily Carr University. I think I did a lecture with them.
Yeah.
And that was in person. And then I might have done something with the University of Toronto, maybe.
Does each one sort of build to the next one? Is that how they each find out about you, or do you know?
I'm not really sure how folks find out about me. I know I get emails in my inbox for people interested in learning or hearing about my work or me presenting my work to their students. And so maybe the University of Toronto, maybe that came out of an exhibition I had in Toronto. And so one of the historians there was interested in me being present for her.
Yeah.
For
and
her
you
lecture.
You recently have a piece in the Gardiner Museum in Toronto, right?
Yes.
That's very cool.
Oh my God!
How exciting!
Yeah, that was really exciting. And I think I think they're the collector, Raphael. He collects a lot of Canadian ceramic artists, and he was inspired by the work and wanted to make sure that the museum had that, available. So.
Yeah, it's one of your historical porcelain pieces that you decorate with your line.
Yeah, one of my earlier pieces. I have a few remaining in the series, but it's I think that was so for graduate school, after graduate school. After undergraduate, I was, working in the studio and still sort of trying to flesh out my ideas. And so I think part of the collection that they have is one where I began thinking about color in my work in terms of color, as opposed to, because my friend would say, before I was using very sort of specific kind of metaphors, black, white, and just these very sort of simple language. So sort of expanding on that language. That was a part of that series. So it had the pink, and it was still the fine china, porcelain, very decorative,
it's very feminine,
very feminine kind of thing. So that they were, I think, in that collection they have the teapot, and then they have, I think, a cup and saucer that's on permanent display so far. Anyway.
Very cool. It's cool so that a Canadian museum is reaching out as far as Savannah, Georgia to get the best ceramic pieces.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really a blessing that, as a Canadian artist, that Canada does support their artists in terms of So they have been really, the Canada Arts Council has been very helpful and supportive with all of my creative research and stuff like that. So that makes it like a little bit more easier for me to sort of like navigate and get my work out in spaces.
That's interesting. So I saw in either on your site or in a previous interview, you were born in Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up where you also have Canadian citizenship too?
So I'm Jamaican born, and my aunt, I have an aunt, so my Jamaican born heritage, my grandparents had a huge farm in the country where, it's still there, but a lot of rural folk, of course, want bigger and better opportunities. And so my aunt had immigrated to Canada and when after she came, she sent for her sisters, and then her sisters came, and then the sisters sent for their children.
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up in Canada. And, I went to school there and, grew up there. And then after graduating and starting to travel the world, I met my husband here in the U.S. And so now we go between here and Canada as much as we can.
So how old were you when you moved from Jamaica to Canada?
I think I was about 9 when I left.
Okay, so most of your childhood memories and everything. That must have been a huge culture shock.
I think I was mute for a year when I moved to Canada.
Just in shock from the cold.
I think just from just trying to absorb culture and sort of like find my place and just understand, So for about a year, I was just like more or less just listening and looking and absorbing and stuff like that with my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you speak French as well?
Un petit peu français, a little bit. I become a little bit more conversational when I'm immersed, for sure.
Yeah.
And I have to really listen, but I can pretty much scratch my way around French conversation.
Can get your way around Montreal.
Yeah.
I was curious. I saw that you both your BFA and your MFA were in Florida, in southern Florida, I guess.
Yes.
So I didn't know if you had gone straight from Jamaica to Florida, because that kind of makes more sense geographically. But how? It sounds like you bounced around.
I think in the year that I was mute, I was wondering why anyone would move to such a cold place, because and I think I know now, weather's changed there a lot. So that we don't feel. I'm not as sort of like obsessed with the weather like I was when I was growing up in such a cold place. So the first opportunity I got to go to Florida, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So that's probably
why
extreme. That's probably why I ended up in Florida, and that's probably why I'm still sort of hanging on to the weather, right, here in Savannah. So so that's.
What was and when you went to for your BFA, did you go intending to study art from the beginning?
Yeah, because I think for me, like, even though I think I say to folks that I came to art late, I think art was always present. It was always it was always there. Like whenever I had heartbreak, I'd make all these great drawings. It was always a place that I'd pour a lot of my feelings and stuff that was like allowed me to express myself.
Yeah.
So my friends would find these great, perfectly rendered drawings, depending on what was happening, and they'd be like surprised that I did this, and I was surprised that they were surprised that I did this. But I never really was intentional about it, although I was always inspired by art. And so definitely like I was a graphic designer for many years,
Really?
And did that, and that's probably why I think that still shows up a lot in my work, the way I make work now. So when I went back to school, I wanted to be very intentional. I knew, because I'd been painting, and I tell folks that I've been painting these cross-eyed things. And I was like, oh God, I want to learn how to oil paint, but I knew the process of teaching myself oil paint was just not something that I was like motivated.
Yeah,
I said, let me go. It's so technical. Let me just go and take a couple of classes to do that. And when I did, I just got like sucked into the whole thing, and then here I am being spit out later.
So your art programs were a little bit later in life. You'd already been a graphic designer.
Yeah, I'd already been to school and gotten
Yeah.
And then I decided to be intentional and go back. And then when I left graphic design and to go into, and I said, okay, I just want to paint. I don't want to do any graphic stuff. And I loved everything, so I had to be really focused, because everything I took, I loved. Every different material I loved. Like I would just get completely like, so it was really hard for me to like come up with my conceptual idea, because I was so much focused on how to, like the
just the making.
Yeah, and I think I'm still sort of like still trying to navigate that somewhat, but yeah.
Were there any other artists or creative people in your family growing up?
I would say probably, yeah. I mean, my uncle was like this controversially famous kind of poet.
Oh, yeah?
When he was Jamaican, and I think he immigrated to London, and, he died early, and, just very sort of weird situation. I was pretty young but in his shadow, I saw the performance, and I saw, the spoken word poetry, and I saw his works were very political. So I don't know if that had inspired me, or or even if I had the words to articulate how I felt. But that was something that was definitely a part of growing up with my father's only brother, and so he was a very big shadow over.
Yeah. Especially if he died young, there's like a
lot of
feeling about him.
Yeah, a lot
as a little kid.
Very present kind of history. Yeah.
I have this kind of theory about because I did the same thing about people who start out in more of an academic way and then eventually end up in art. That like first you go to graphic design. That's like the first stage, because I did the same thing. And my theory is just that like if you kind of have no familiarity with people who are making a living through like just fine art or something more like quote unquote wacky, that at least in graphic design you're like, well, it's a career, you get a job, and so that's like your first stop basically.
Yeah, I remember I was really inspired. I remember sitting and seeing someone create something on the computer, just some graphic stuff, and I was just completely like that green, what they call it, jealousy of envy.
Oh yeah,
came over me. I was like, wow,
at them creating
that
this.
is magic. Like, how did you do this? So I know I was really like inspired by that kind of stuff. And even it's funny because even with ceramic, like making stuff, I'd be like, oh, you can make something? Oh, that's so crazy. Like, what did you make? Oh, and then when I started doing ceramic, I learned that I have this very sort of, although it's not evident on the work that I make now, but I have this very sort of indexed way of mark making with ceramic, and so no matter what I sculpt, it has this very particular look about it. No matter, it's like I can't really even try. The more I try to get away from it.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting, like learning that in terms of like an index of touch and how, our bodies make certain marks and certain things inspire us.
The evidence, not being too perfect, but the evidence that somebody made it.
Yeah, well, that too, but even more so. It's like you've seen like the way certain people will make certain figures. You can give two people, they make a head, and they make it like the way I make certain things. They have, without trying, you can tell that, oh, that's Sharon made that. Oh, she made that one too. Oh, she made that one.
Yeah.
And when I create these figurative works. So that, I think, when I started making objects that kind of I saw retained like this very sort of signature way of making, that kind of helped me like say, okay, maybe I need to like engage more in this thing called art. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I want to definitely talk about this more later because I know you work in all these different realms, but you have this like kind of strong idea that goes through all of them, so I want to talk about that for sure. But I kind of wanted to get into when you went to art school, and you said that you first started, you were doing these like figurative paintings and you wanted to learn to paint more, but immediately you started getting more into concepts and everything was broadened. And I was curious about you moving from Jamaica to Canada and then to the US, if like suddenly like the kind of like racial issues in the US, I'm sure really different than growing up in Canada. So was that like a lot of learning when you first went to college?
I think for me, my first experiences coming to the States happened maybe when I was a teenager and I'd gotten my license, and my friends and I would, it's very cold in Canada. I've always been motivated by the weather. So we were like, okay, we need to get out of here. Let's go to Florida, or let's go to New Orleans. And we would drive.
Wow.
Right? Highly motivated by warm weather. So we would drive from Toronto to New Orleans. And I remember us driving with our maps, no GPS, and all of a sudden recognizing that the landscape has changed, and now every car, the person was a black person. And I remember the first time that happened to us, and we were like, it was almost like very weird because we were like, what is going on? We don't understand this. Why is this? And so I think for me, those started asking those questions right away, and then recognizing also how other people reacted to that space, like how others around me weren't aware of that space. They weren't aware, this was a normal thing for everybody. And so I think most of my time being in the States has been about unpacking that understanding. And I think that exists in my work, this unpacking of this certain awareness, like everybody is aware and somehow okay or participating in this thing that was just so very weird to me. Because in Canada, growing up there, and Canada does have a history too, similar history as the U.S. I'm not trying to say that one's better than the other, but there is definitely a language or a permission to talk about, differences in a way that is respectful, or at least gives you you have permission to speak about these things, or those were always things that I was taught in school anyway. So for me, seeing those things was very different, was very interesting, and so a lot of my work is talking about that, like the piece where, the pink piece that is like completely covered in hair, to me speaks about that accept how we accept these sort of normal things that isn't. And I think Savannah has been very like interesting to me too, because I look around when I first came here and people are always like, oh, so beautiful here, it's so romantic, it's so pretty. And it is all those things if you really think, it's almost like going to the cemetery and seeing all the beautiful flowers and just only paying attention to the flowers and stuff like that, and not recognizing of exactly, the violence and the stuff the evidence that
like still, even in a cemetery there's segregation.
Yeah, like the evidence that still exists in like these as these beautiful objects,
Yeah. So you mentioned so in Canada it felt almost less touchy to talk about racial things, because I know like Canada has their own history with the indigenous people, but I guess they don't have a history of literal slavery. So
they do have a history of slavery. Okay. I mean when the war, the Confederate War, when it happened here, a lot of folks were promised freedom if they fought for the against the Confederate. And they were given their freedom and they went to Canada. And also a lot of folks who had money left and brought their servants, AKAs, with them to other places, know. So, and Canada does have, they did have slaves in Canada. It's not, along with all the indigenous stuff that happened in the U.S. and Canada. It happened, all this stuff has happened in North America, and it's we are living in a continuum of that, on the number line of that history, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of like how I kind of look at it like that.
Yeah, I really didn't know if they had like a huge.
A lot of folks don't. In fact, a lot of folks didn't even realize that Canada was even on the same continent as North America. Like.
It is kind of weird, I would say, growing up in the U.S., that we really don't learn any Canadian history. You have to go out and really look for it, but we're not taught anything. So
for me, I feel like that's given me, like, me traveling across has given me, like, a lens where I can try to sort of connect the dots, whether I'm in New Brunswick or, and I'm, up there with the Acadians, or I'm in New Orleans with the Cajuns, I can, like, see that connection, I can see the triangle, the goal, the triangle where the trade used to go, right? And there's still like lots of evidence that still remains, and that within that affects our lives and our culture and the things that we our architect, it's like literally.
It's amazing how strong that would be, that it would still be carrying on.
And I think for me, in the same regards, in the sense that folks are very, they'll say, oh, here's my family tree, my mother, my father, my blah, 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 blah. You can trace it, and it's like lovely. But we can trace our architect, and we can trace our people who built it. We can trace our industries, and we can trace, our banking system, and we can trace our we can trace all of that, and it's evidenced all around us, right? With what remains in our architecture, roads, or
Yeah, city planning. I know I lived in New York for a bit, and there was I can't remember his name, but there was a period where in all of the like poor or brown and black neighborhoods, there was one particular city planner who was putting a lot of just like terrible highways, and it was just planned to be very ugly, where these huge boulevards were cutting through the neighborhoods. And so it still carries on where certain neighborhoods are nicer and less touched by these huge roads.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in terms of urban development how urban development follows commerce and economy. Where are they going to put the factories? Where are the people who are working the factories going to live, and how far? So I mean, those things are like still evident. So I think maybe my perspective of being in Jamaica, in Canada, and being here allows me to be maybe outside looking and assessing these systems to see how they connect, or how how to understand like my place in these systems.
Yeah, for sure. Did you when you first started at undergrad and you first started using your art to explore different like racial and cultural issues, did you feel comfortable doing that? Were you like supported?
Yeah, well, I think definitely when I first started making, I didn't understand what I was making or why I was making or whatever. I just wanted to learn to not paint cross-eyed things, right?
Your early paintings were coming out cross-eyed?
Yeah, because I was like, I just wanted to learn how to make art, right? And like use things. But I noticed that right early that the things that I was wanting to make, and the early thing that I was trying to make, that I wanted to make were pretty much like stuff that, that I'm familiar with. Like with you, you want to paint draw my husband. He's a black guy. So he's, I'm painting, how do you paint flesh, right? So I've got right away I have a different question than all my peers, because I want to know how to paint
it's true.
Paint a portrait, a self-portrait of yourself, Sharon. Okay, even if we're all in the class, paint a self-portrait. We're all going to do self-portraits. Right away, my questions are different than all my mates, because I want to know how to make flesh.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. You're mixing different colors.
Colors, right? So that's how my works began, right? And so folks would say, when my stuff is there, political, right? He's a political Sharon, and I'm like, huh? Right? And that's continues to be my world, right? Because I make, all of us make the work we make based on our experience in the world, because it's a way for us to articulate our ideas and those things, reflect back what shines on us, right? And so those things, for me, I'm doing a thing on myself and I'm putting it there, right? So it becomes political. And so then when a curator comes and says, let me take this thing and put it in this gallery space, this white cube space, it becomes even more political, right?
Yeah.
And it's been the snowball. And so then when you go back to the artist and say, okay, so did you, so that's been like and I think it's because maybe it's because there's not that permission, that free thought of to talk about these things in these spaces. So folks, when they see it, and I think that fracture there, that little understanding that comes when you're like, is what I'm trying to articulate in my work, right? Because if you say this, then it's like you can get all these iterations of about my experience, and we all go back to our own experience, which is very different. But then if you can break it down into a space that folks can kind of like bring themselves and say, that does look different. Why does it look different? And they can ask themselves that question for themselves, then that's when I think magic happens.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So it's like a degree removed. Like the interesting point is the fact that you just were doing a self-portrait or a portrait of your husband, and then that became this like, it looked so othering. And so the art is like about why is that so different?
Right, and then you have to ask yourself, why is it othering? Why am I having, why does this piece feel like othering?
Like, why are you the only one?
And why is there
that looks
only
like
one?
that?
And why, why is this, taking away from my, is it why is it changing, or why am I feeling like I have to twist my body in some way to sort of engage in this thing in a new way? Like, why isn't it just like, portraits, and what does it take to get there? Like, portraits, as opposed to,
right? Why does yours have to be this political statement? Like, you can't just create just a neutral thing.
Why can't it be examined in a context of in the same sort of neutral context. And I think that's always been the thing, right? That I think in every instance, that question is a question that lingers in, like, is that question? That is the question.
Yeah. So even if you weren't setting out to do something that was a statement on race, that is like thrust on you. Like
yeah,
that light is put on you.
at this body. It's like you may not be going out creating something on gender, right?
Right.
But I mean, if you decide to, and maybe it's not as nuanced as that, but if you decide to, do something red, people are going to automatically assume that maybe it's a period. Or something like that, right? Or something.
Or just like if you paint like a naked figure, as a woman is all different with the male gaze, and like what's the statement you're making versus a painting of a naked man doesn't have all this history put on it.
Yeah, and it can become a very even more pointed than that, because I feel like even with some of my objects, my object comes with, and that's one of the things I try to like think about, like objects, how certain things come already embedded with certain understandings, right? And then I think about, okay, well, like how does this, our understanding of this object, we all can understand this object as a thing, right? So then when you take the thing and you do something unconventional with this thing, you stick it inside like that thing, then, people, we automatically start to unpack all of that, right?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things I think about in my work, and I try to engage with it somewhat. How is that work?
It looks like you're, I was trying to put this together, like kind of your timeline, because it seems like you had this really amazing just evolution from like medium to medium and the idea expanding. So it seemed to me like maybe, did it start with these kind of digital collages where you started with these like 1800s looking like fancy images from the Met that you were putting the hair on?
It's interesting because I think that's been a question. No, it started off like in undergrad. I was all over the place, and I wanted to like, so I just scrapped everything after undergrad. I said, okay, let me just start over. And I was like, just sort of a lot of my learnings was sort of like just rummaging around. I thought, let's just go back to drawing. You don't have to, it doesn't take you very long to set up. You can, use a pen and paper.
Yeah.
It's very democratic. And I like that thought of it too. It's very accessible. And so I started with these drawings, and I was thinking about still life, and I was thinking about self-portrait. Because one of the things I was thinking to myself, like, oh, it'd be lovely to do a self-portrait every year of myself. So I was thinking about self-portrait, but I didn't want to do something direct. I didn't just want to draw a person. I didn't want to do figurative. So I was thinking, okay, what can I curate in my space that would be representation of that self-portrait of me? And at the time, my hair was falling. I'm always doing something crazy with my hair. So my hair is always falling. I don't have a routine for a hair salon.
It's a lot of work, I would imagine.
It's a lot of work. And my mom left when I was quite young, and so my father used to take care of my hair. And so doing my hair was never like a thing for me, right? So it still isn't, right? So anyhow, I wanted to draw my hair. And so in terms of how I was feeling about how hair is so much, and so I thought that would be a great representation for my self-portrait.
Oh.
And so when I was so I gathered a bunch of clumps, and I started drawing, and then in the process of drawing my self-portrait, the hair as a self-portrait for myself, and a lot of my undergraduate thinking was going through my mind about drawing and the line, and trust the line, and mark making, and if you draw hair and you look away too much, if you look away, you're going to lose your mark. So you just have to trust the mark in the process. And so that's what I was doing. I got myself into that meditative space, and I made some drawings. I made about 13 black and white drawing ink. I remember telling myself, no erase, no erasing, right? So it's this like meditative process.
And ink, I'm an ink lover too. Just the process of the ink coming out of the pen is just such a good feeling.
Well, I was using Micron. I have to be. I was using Micron, which I learned from like a warm black. I was using Micron, and so I did all these, and I still have them. These minimal drawings. In fact, those are the drawings that are on all of my stuff. And so I started with those drawings, and when I finished drawing the 30, I didn't know if these marks would realize as hair. I didn't know if they would read as hair, if they'd read as string or whatever, right? And so I wanted to test it out. I was like, I think it's string, it's a thread.
Yeah.
So I invited my friends over. I tacked them on the wall, invited my friends over. While I was tacking them on my wall, my little, I call him my nephew, but he's actually my godson's brother, walked into the room and said to me, how did you get the hair on the wall?
Aw.
And that comment there is what really kind of like snowballed all this work, right? After I showed it, I was excited, and I showed it, and then I wanted to continue using these marks, and then I was thinking about these marks in this way. So that's how it began.
I love the idea of a self-portrait every year, and you're doing just a portrait of your hair through the years. Is really profound. Because it also says it's like you're boiling, it's like your whole essence, you're boiling it down. Not your face, which for most people is like that's who you are, but for you it would be your hair through the years. Is
right.
The idea of that's the way you're presenting yourself is really interesting.
Yeah, the work has been like it's been growing, giving back.
There's a lot of puns.
Yeah, there's
in
a lot
there.
of puns. It's very layered. It's allowed me to, because I like all these different mediums. I wanted to try to keep myself focused through a conceptual theme and idea. And so that was really difficult because, I was like, I have this really nice way, I think. I'm getting used to comfortable with touch and clay in the material. And so I wanted to continue to sort of marry my two-dimensional work with my three-dimensional work, but at the same time think about how I can conceptually not be like everywhere, right? While still keeping space open, so that I can experiment and grow. With the work.
Well, your work is so you have like your black and white, the ink drawings of the hair, and then you have ink that you draw onto already created classical pieces of china that has, like you said, all this feeling in them.
Funny enough, I actually do not draw on china in the way that you think. So my initial drawings, I think I did about 13 of them. I might have a few of them left for anyone interested. I use those marks to inform all of my new work. So all of my ceramic pieces, those marks, initial marks, I use those marks to make custom decals, right? Oh. So the marks, because of my graphic design background, became material. So my initial drawings become material for new works. So, with my graphic background, I translated those marks into decal material, which I then collage painstakingly, I might add, onto the surface of the wear. So, like my china, that's one that have a lot more marks. Some of those are fired like 20 times.
So the decal is adhesive, but you have to fire it.
So it stays. So it becomes. So those marks become a permanent part of the surface without destroying or interfering with the utilitarian function of the object.
They kind of melt onto the surface.
Yeah, like in the same way that they applied the pink colors to decorative china, those marks are applied in the same way. So your decorative china, you can put coffee and stuff in there and drink from it, and it's not, it's not gonna poison you. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not gonna float off. Is that the same way that I applied the mark? I think conceptually I was thinking at the time that I didn't want, I was having a conversation about these objects, historical objects and black bodies, and, pairing the two, and there to be a conversation about, is this body making this thing, this object, is it, because if I was drawing on it, I felt like it would take away from the object's purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Which to me would I didn't want that kind of like interfered with my conceptual ideas at the time. So I was like, no, it's important for these marks to be a part of this decorative conversation in the same way.
Do you have a kiln? How do you get them fired?
I do have a kiln. Oh. My kiln's not. I do have a kiln. I got several kilns. I'm not allowed to have one here. But I do have one at home. Yeah. So I fire things there. And
then I know you've taken the line and the look of the hair, and you do your own like ceramic little sculptures of it too. So I love that it's just branching out into all these different medium.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like because I like to do all these different things, trying to find a way to give yourself permission, and maybe I need to give myself a little bit more permission, even not to be so like intent on this the thing. But for me, it was a little bit easier to think about because I'm working ceramic and I'm using found objects, and at the same time I still want to engage with this material that I have the sense that, so that became the answer to that question. How do I do this? Okay, I can bring this piece in the round. Like, especially now, it's not actual hair, it's an abstraction, it's an idea of hair. So I can create this abstracted thing that people will now recognize, or maybe, some folks will identify it as hair, as opposed to if I did these objects first, maybe folks wouldn't connect that to that language. So
because when you're making them as the
could be a
the
worm,
ceramics
it could be a
feature,
snake.
because it's much bigger. Like, you can't, ceramics make literally the same fine line that you can with a pen, so it's like blown up. It's become
Conceptual,
sort of larger than life.
Yeah.
It's like each one, it's just spinning off into different aspects of it. And then I saw on your website there's also, you have a short film of like an installation, and there were shadows involved, and there were different layers, but it still is that same shape with the line and the curly hair. So it just seems very, very cool that you have this like very strong vision and concept, and you've been able to translate it into just like every possible.
Like, what else is she gonna do?
I know, yeah.
How else is she do?
Are you gonna have enormous ones? It'll be we can go in a room and run around them.
And I tell you, I think one of the exciting things for me, because I know in undergrad I had a really hard time when I was looking at my colleagues, and they had these very strong conceptual ideas, and they were able to work and get excited within those, and create amazing work. And I just had no idea. I remember saying to my friend, I wish I really loved cats, although I do really love cats. But I was like, being like, trying to say, okay, if I knew I really loved the thing, then I would be able to like create in that space and get excited. And so for me, all honesty, like, I am inspired. Like, the more I make, I feel like I'm developing and building a language that, it began with self-portraiture, and I've got these indexed things that I use, but, I've also been articulating like found objects, or, objects embedded with histories, right? And, some of it is like, to me, I feel like it's just an exploration of like mirroring my experience in the world, like being in Savannah and the thing that I encounter here, and like, being in this black body and the thing that I experienced as the black person in this body. So it becomes like rejuvenative. I know I'm saying that wrong. But it becomes the thing that keeps giving. And so, when I'm in the studio, whatever it is I'm making, I can use the language that I'm building to continue to make work.
Just a constant cycle, everything.
Yeah, that's how
I love the found pieces where it's this like really beautiful painted porcelain china, and like you said, that every object has all this meaning that we've already imbued into it, and everybody has seen like movies based on Jane Austen books, and where you have this vision where suddenly you just immediately can picture like wealthy white women sitting in a sitting room drinking from these beautiful pieces of china. There's so much already imbued in these pieces. Yeah, and femininity, and how we raise ourselves, and how when we're playing with our dolls and our imagination, and that's probably part of it too, because I had a very huge, I still do, big imagination. I always thought I'd be a writer, and so when you think about those things, like I know a lot of the stuff that even I make, I continue to unpack the reasons, like why am I reaching for this specific object? What is it about this object that cements my understanding of certain things, right? And so trying to unpack those allows me to create even more work, based on those things, those ideas. Recent new objects you've been reaching for? There's definitely things that are coming out in my practice. I have a couple of exhibitions that are coming up that won't. I'll say a little bit, maybe by the time. That's coming out. I know I'm going to be having an exhibition, I think, in Alabama that speaks to the same kind of concerns that I have, and so thinking about, and a lot of times, like in terms of found objects, I feel like the objects like find me, like I see it. It's almost like driving through, and then something happens that like makes me question, or make me have to like twist my body into a place of understanding, right? Uh-huh. And when that happens, then that objects can become something that's like a part of the work, or I can like interrogogate that. Like you feel yourself responding in a big way to an object, and then you think, well, this must be important. Yeah, like the first time that I learned, for instance, for the teapots and stuff, going to thrift stores and realizing that these pieces exist and they cost thousands of dollars, these fine china that people spend money on. Yeah. And like just thinking about that, my mind twisting my body around, wrapping my head around
the meaning of all of that and what that means to me with these objects that are like, close and far and like, engaging and, so like, bringing that into my studio and then unpacking that becomes like, what is it?
So by the time they've ended up in thrift stores, are they pretty inexpensive at that point?
No, they can still be very expensive.
Okay.
You just have to be a really good thrift person.
Yeah.
And I was living in Florida for a while where everybody comes with all their precious items that they cannot part with. And after the first 2 winters, they're like, we got to get this shit out of here. So stuff out of here.
That's fine. It's an all ages.
Okay.
It's an adult podcast.
And so, I being the desperate housewife that I think I am, when I'm going around to the thrift stores, I find these things. And so they're always like, they're the thing that goes through your mind, I think, when you go through other people's things, like through thrift stores, where it makes you think about those lived lives and those experiences and stuff like that. And so that became a part of my came into focus for me, and then I started like unpacking this thing and then recognizing that these things have this cultural value, and then thinking about what is this cultural value of this thing, and how can I use this cultural value to implicate all of us into how we continue to maintain these structures and these things. So some of my work is also that.
It's as you were talking, I just sort of realized that in Florida there must be, because it's where a lot of like elderly people go to retire. So the thrift stores and the charity store, like there must be amazing finds there.
Yeah,
right?
the church, the church have these
church sales.
So you go in, you find all sorts of things.
Yeah, the housewares and the clothing from eras past must be amazing in Florida. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So I think definitely that, when you look at my work, it's like if you chart like where I've been in the world, you probably can say, oh yeah, she doesn't really go far from home.
It would be really funny to think about somebody who donated their china and then coming across, seeing a picture of you that you've found it in a store and you've made it into art and it's now in a museum. How amazing would that be?
That's true, right?
To recognize your piece.
I know that the first time I think for my graduate thesis, I had one of the pieces, decorative pieces in there, and this lady came in, and I wish I taped it, because I think she recognized the piece from far away, and as she got closer, she started, her voice, she freaked out because she recognized the value of the thing, and the thing obviously had a different value for her, because these would have been objects that you would have wanted. You would have been like, oh honey, we can probably if we want to be a respectable family, we have to have this.
Was this like a porcelain piece?
Very expensive
like
pieces.
a tea set?
Some of these things are like, $2,000, $3,000 tea sets.
Yeah, they're beautifully painted.
That you would buy. So if you're a family and you can, I don't know what your situation is, but if you're a family that just have a brand new house and a baby and $4,000 tea sets, you're probably, in a place where most folks aren't, right?
Right, because you spent that much money on something that's breakable as
well,
just not a stable thing.
Tea set. It's not even your handbag,
or a car.
Or your car, or your pool in your yard, or all your other spills. So I think, folks, when they, there are these things like these luxury items, right?
Yeah, it is a luxury item. It's fun. We kind of don't, at this era where we're not necessarily drinking out of fine porcelain, we don't think of it, but it's a luxury item.
Yeah, some folks are buying their, even in modern day, folks are buying their you can get like a whole set for $20, $30 at IKEA. Why would you spend $6,000? And people are still doing that.
This thing, but it's like the finest clay used, and it's very beautifully painted, like somebody hand painted it, and a lot of work went into it.
Imagine. These things were like symbols of wealth.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so a few years ago, I know you were in a show, you either had a solo show or you were in a show at Laney Contemporary.
Oh, right. Melissa Messina and Lisa J. Young. And I can't remember who else the curator was. But the show was with me, myself, Liz was in there, in part of the show. Suzanne Jackson was in the show. And I think there might have been somebody else, but I can't remember. Forgive me.
Yeah, I'll forgive you. How did that come about? Was that what was that experience like?
Well, when I first moved here to Savannah, I didn't know anyone, and so I was trying to meet the community. And my husband and I just bought this house not too far from here that's like still needing to be fixed up in the process of picking up.
What year did you move here?
2019, maybe 18,
Okay.
Probably 18, 19.
Okay.
Say. And so I used to do exhibitions there. I used to give people exhibitions there, not myself. So I think I gave one of my friends an exhibition there, and I think I worked with one of the ladies that was working at Laney Contemporary at the time, and paired her up with two artists, Kelly Bomer and Brittany Watkins, and so they had an exhibition in my
your house.
Yeah, my working
Cool.
house.
That was your way of getting in with meeting people in the community.
Yeah, well, my way of giving back and getting to know the creative community a little bit, and so
Smart.
I met some folks, and then and Melissa was inspired by my work and thought it had a real connection to some of the other artists that were making work here, and then they connected us with Susan. Thank you so much. And then I got a show there, so I was like, yeah.
That's such a beautiful gallery. Must have been so exciting.
Yeah, she's been really lovely with me, and she's been pretty supportive.
Yeah.
She does carry some of my works there, so folks can reach out to her
Oh, that's
locally
great.
and nationally. She, if they are interested in getting some of my work and they are not able to get hold of me, because I'm.
So you're represented by.
I don't know. Well, I'd say we have a relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
some of my works are there. Folks can call them and get my works from them, and Susan has always been very supportive, and I'm really.
That's very
really
cool.
kind of thankful. Yeah.
I saw on your resume you have a big portion of it that you've done various lectures and speeches and kind of one-off talks at various colleges, including SCAD, and then other places in the South and also in Canada.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious about each time you give a talk, and it's a really good opportunity to synthesize all your thoughts together and really dig in and put it together. Do you find that your work kind of changes a little bit after each one because you have to really think about it a lot?
I think most of my lectures are kind of similar to this, really, which is kind of funny, where with the exception that I would have a PowerPoint and I'll talk about my work. I might talk about specifics about my work. So folks they'll invite me, and usually just students that are art students. So these are the type of topics that they're interested in, type of questions how do you develop your ideas? How do you just different So they will invite me to talk about stuff, or sometimes I'll go to classes that have nothing to do with art, that are I think I've been invited to a women's history class because they talk about similar issues and concepts that I deal with in my work. So it becomes a way for me to engage with these kind of real issues and stronger kind of, for me to understand the work too that I'm making. So it becomes this giving thing when I'm invited. I mean, that's kind of nice.
Did you, when you were talking to a few classes at SCAD, that environment of art school, was it kind of similar to what you were in Florida? Does it seem different at all? Because SCAD is it's very kind of business oriented.
No, I think I've been invited to SCAD for a few different things. I think I was invited in an art history class because again, they deal with similar issues.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was invited to talk about my concept, and I think I've also presented to graduate students. And when I first finished school, I'm a full-time artist, so that could be an interest where people want to learn. How do you apply for grants? How do you apply for a residency? What is a residency? How do I make my? Because I think I was getting a lot of attention right from the get-go, right out of school, and so people were even though my career is still not getting every but I think I was getting a lot of opportunities, so folks were just interested in to know, how am I getting these opportunities, what are they, how am I preparing, do I have any suggestions and tips, and so a lot of that. So folks will invite me to just pick my brain about that kind of stuff, and
yeah. You said so last year you had multiple residencies that you went on.
I think I forget. I'm really bad. My memory is really bad. I can only remember what's in front of me. Last year, because I have all these different goals for my practice, and then last year I think I wanted to learn more about different places in Canada, and so I think, or the last 2 years I wanted to do that, and so I think I went to the Banff residency in Calgary, so that was really lovely.
Oh, that's cool.
That one's a very lovely one.
Yeah, just naturally beautiful.
It's
being
in
there.
it's in Calgary. It's in Alberta, and it's just beautiful in Calgary. So I did that one, and then I think I did one at Strutt's Gallery later during the year. That one was for that one was more like, funny enough, was had nothing to do with ceramic, nothing to do with painting painting or anything. They had more like digital equipment, because I was interested in making a sound piece for one of the installations that I was doing, and so I did that last year. And then I think... So
you have a sound piece floating around
somewhere? I do have a sound piece, and
cool.
I haven't really started talking about it, although it's very exciting and it's been getting like some attention. And as soon as I'm settled, because I'm just a one person, that's why I'm always forgetting so much stuff. But that's something that I'm excited to like continue to...
You want to go more into that realm?
Not necessarily go more into that realm, but that I think for the last installation that I did here at the Telfair Museum, I'll tell you a little bit about it. For the Telfair Museum's Owens-Thomas House, I was asked to do an installation in the drawing room of the house, and so I did an installation, immersive, and I wanted to make it truly immersive, and I felt that it needed something else, which I thought was a sound piece.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so I created something for that, which is really kind of cool.
What program did you use to do this?
Right. So I'm very technical.
Yeah.
So what program did I use? I used Adobe Premiere.
Yeah.
Because I learned it in undergrad, and I still remembered a few things in there. I know.
Well, this is funny since you started out in graphic design, so you're good with computers. So it's like you went through all these different fine art things and doing ceramics and firing in a kiln, and now you're getting back a little bit into
I'm pretty much a one-stop shop. I'm very skilled at InDesign, Photoshop. I mean, like real skilled, like multiple page, all kinds. So I did not as skilled with Premiere, but enough for me to be able to hack my way around.
Yeah.
In the end, I was like a little bit hesitant. I wasn't quite sure if I had it all right, so I think I had Will. I was like, Will, can you look at this?
Little penny?
To help me. And he was like, Sharon, you're fine, you got it, right?
That's so funny. I'm talking to him very soon.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm a fan. Will is amazing. So,
I would love to see a collab between you two.
Yeah, I mean, we collaborate. I feel like we collaborate behind the scenes, not necessarily on professional work. But definitely I'm always saying, because he's Canadian as well.
That's right, and he does a lot of projections.
He does a lot of projections.
The whole space. I feel like that'd be very cool between you two.
Yeah, so I try to reach out, whenever he's available, and if I need any kind of assistance, he's been very lovely.
Oh, that's good to know about Will.
Yeah.
Do you use the residencies, each one specifically to explore some specific aspect, or do you just kind of use them as like a way to get out of town and see something new?
I think it depends. It depends on everything. It depends on everything. I've got a residency coming up, I think, for the summer at Alfred University in Alfred, New York.
I've been there. It's beautiful. I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Crisp and clear and woodsy.
Oh, that's so cool.
You'll love it. It's actually quite Canadian.
Really?
Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to be up north there, and then I'm going to be doing a residency in Toronto. And the residency in Toronto that I chose that specifically. It's a self-directed residency. I partially chose it because I knew I was going to be in Toronto for like an extended time, and I really want to maintain a studio. I like to be able to work. And so it'll allow me to be able to work while at the same time be able to visit my family and the gallery. I have a gallery up there that I work with as well.
Oh, that's so nice.
And then see some folks.
That everybody's close enough, you can still do a lot.
Yeah, so I'll be able to see the gallery. I'll be able to just hang out in Toronto, make some new friends, and then also have a nice little place where I can make some work. I don't know what I'm going to make in that space yet. But I can bring some work with me. And
you sound amazing at getting residencies. I feel like you could just teach a seminar.
I would love to. I would love to, definitely. I mean, and that's why I'm always doing this stuff, because I think I feel like I'm a wealth of information and I love to share.
Yeah.
I also mentor. I also have a couple of folks that I mentor to. Got one lady that I mentor. I think I finished up with her, and then I have I'm going to be starting with these 3 people that I'm going to be mentoring. And it's I think it's a 4-hour mentorship thing. So I also do that as part of being a full-time artist, and just having these multiple things that I
do. You ever feel interested, like you'd want to be a professor, or is that not?
I think I would probably do professor at every now and then. I would probably accept a residency at a place for a year.
Yeah.
Right. I definitely entertain that. I mean, I love being a studio artist, you know, I like being able to make my work and stuff like that. I definitely love the idea of, you know, connecting with students and sharing as well. So I would entertain it in certain instances.
Like in a small dose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess we're kind of coming toward the end. So do you want to talk a bit about, do you have anything coming up in Savannah that we can see, or just kind of just new directions that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think for now, like I was just going. So for now, I think I've just been like really happy that I can just be able to be here and present and be able to accept, like, you know, you know, these opportunities that come up, like, you know, being able to meet with you. And I think for the next while, my plan really is just to take it easy, because I need to be making some work and to be able to, like, you know, creating a space so that I can be making some work.
Yeah.
So I'm not really planning. Like, I feel like I can't, you know, otherwise I'm going to be going crazy again. So I'm really enjoying, like, the time right now.
You have some time to hunker down and
make some work.
I'm the same, where things go in waves, where sometimes there's a blip where it's just more businessy things and maybe more administrative, like planning ahead. And then there's a wave where you have a lot of time to just make a big series, and it kind of goes back and forth like that.
And it's totally a different, and another talk. It's so funny because I feel like when I do these things, there's always these topics that comes up. People are like, "Oh yeah, we should talk to her about that." It's like, how do you budget your time? You know, the ministry. I mean, there's just so much.
Yeah, I know. There was so much to talk about for your work, like conceptually and materials, and we didn't get into. You know, you can always ask, "What's your daily life like? What's your schedule like?" And that, I think, is interesting in a whole different way. But yeah, there's infinite number of things we can be talking about.
Thank you so much.
Being a full-time artist it's an incredible amount of things to juggle.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts, you know, and so that's why, you know, there's all these, and it's different also for everyone in terms of all of our opportunities and you know, that presents. Yeah,
everybody is charting a different course, and everybody has, like, their eggs in different baskets. Yeah.
That happens for everyone.
Different balances of how much business versus how much art, and how much is conceptual versus just making. Like, it's incredible just how different everybody's work is. But this community is so cool, just getting to talk to other people and finding out all these people who can make our living in the creative field, and we're all doing it in our own different way, is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for talking to me, Sharon. It's been wonderful. And so I will definitely post a bunch of different photos when this goes up on we have a Facebook page. You can follow us at Art on the Air and see each post. And this has been Tamara Garvey with Sharon Norwood. Thank you again.
Thank you.